Hello, LinkedIn Live. Hello, Daryl. Hello, Josh. I'm really excited to have you guys on. Let's allow a few minutes for everybody to come in. So, today I'm coming to you from a little bit of a different location. I am home preparing for Milton to come upon us. We have the amazing Daryl from Cvent, a good friend, an amazing entrepreneur. We have Josh from Viacry. And today we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about yet. I'm personally excited. We're going to talk about the anatomy of an entrepreneur. And we have two gentlemen here that can really share with you guys many angles of business, from starting your own business to working for amazing companies, acquiring companies, bringing investment in. I'm truly, truly excited. And I would love for everybody to ask questions. Um, Numan says, "Hey, Derek," and he's excited for this event. So, gentlemen, before we begin, can you just give a little bit of an intro about yourself? And we'll start with Daryl. Daryl, in a minute, can you share with us who you are and what you're about?
Sure. Well, given the content for today, I'll go way back, but I will keep it short, I promise. But I started off as an entrepreneur in the cellular business in 1991. And for those of you who have been around that long, in 1991, nobody had cell phones, nobody wanted them, they didn't work, and they were expensive. I went on to found another company, and then kind of fast forward, I got into the software business in 2001, which is what I've been doing, and I've been doing that as what I call an entrepreneur. And so, what I'm all about at the end of the day, building relationships and teams, because culture is what matters. But of course, driving revenue probably trumps that, but you can't have one without the other. So I'm all about building teams, driving revenue, and ultimately helping customers, because that's why we get paid as entrepreneurs, is because we're doing something good.
So, just like love and marriage, you can't have one without the other, right? So, that's team building and revenue. You have to do it together if you want it to work. Josh, why don't you share with everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, hey everybody, great to see you all. So I've been in the entertainment space for the last 10 years. Everything from scaling cloud infrastructures and specifically the gaming space, all the way down to working on some really cool games, and many of which you've seen, hence my background. But yeah, at the heart of it, I'm a technologist. Founded a company called Stratton Studios, God, nearly 10 years ago now. Have scaled it to well over 130 something now. We scale up and down. But yeah, so I've done that. Started a number of entities as well, and one of them being Wirecard with Dev. So I'm a serial technologist, serial entrepreneur. I just like, building things.
That is awesome.
Your
So,
accent's just a little bit hard to ascertain, Josh. I can't quite tell.
It's elusive.
we have a joke. I think in one of our investor meeting, somebody gave Josh the nickname. What was it? McGregor of technology. I don't really remember what it was, but Josh's accent always makes things interesting. But I'll have to say, for I understand you really well. And I've spoken to some Irish people that I've had a really hard time understanding. So I feel lucky. I truly, I get you completely, man.
Yeah, it can be bad. I will say that Irish accents can, especially if you're from the West, like even I can understand it sometimes, to be honest with you. You just smile and wave. Smile and wave.
So, Dara, let's start with you. So, you're a good friend. You're somebody that, I've looked up to for a long time, somebody that I've seen move and shake. You're now working with this amazing company called Cvent, and we wanted to share something about Cvent. First of all, tell us what you do for Cvent and what Cvent is.
Yeah, so I'll start with what Cvent does. We are in the event technology business, and we help people put on great events. There's actually two sides to our business. There's one side that really works with the hotels and the venues, the convention bureaus, that type of thing. So we call that kind of the supplier side. And then we have what we call our event cloud, which is a fancy way of saying we work with people who are putting on events. So event planners, marketers. We're finding ourselves more and more in the CMO suite as they're talking about their total event program and how they drive things. And so our technology includes everything from finding a venue to getting a room block set up to doing the registration and launching beautiful websites that people can land on and register for an event, mobile app on site, badge printing, and a whole litany of other things. And I'm proud to serve as our Senior Vice President of Sales. And so I lead our division, which focuses on companies, corporations less than $1 billion, as well as all the EDU vertical, the education vertical, the association vertical, the government vertical, and the nonprofit vertical. So lots of stuff in there.
So anything events, you guys are the leading, at least the leading company that I know. Event technology, event organization from both sides, B2B, B2C, anything event related, Cvent is the company to go to. And you guys have done an amazing job. This is not something we planned on talking about, but can you talk to us a little bit about how Cvent has changed with the recent changes of, technology, remote work, everything that's been going on with the industry? Because what you guys have done is amazing. I've stood aside in awe.
Yeah, well, you're very kind. It has been an incredible place to have a journey over the last 12 years. And there was a big pivot, of course, when COVID hit. And, imagine being in the events business and live events coming to a screeching halt. I mean, a screeching halt. And we then had to pivot and figure out how we would put something together for virtual events. We're 5,000 employees, so it took us a couple months to kind of do that pivot. But we were able to do it. We were also able to do it without eliminating a lot of jobs, which was amazing because we saw our industry get ransacked and really have some difficult times. And we were able to come through that. The biggest thing from a business perspective that came out of that is marketing really started to embrace live events, right? They really started looking at it as, man, this is really important part of my business because events became digitized, right? You think about an online event, a virtual event, that's digital. And there's all kinds of things that you can, all kinds of things that you can do, metrics that maybe weren't as prevalent when it was just in person. And so today we do a lot of virtual events still. There's a lot of companies that are like, hey, we got to have this mix in our portfolio. And so we're doing virtual events and of course, tons and tons and tons of live events now. But that switch in the market really enabled us to get into the CMO suite, which is really, really important, right? Because those are the folks that are driving the strategy on how their marketing tactics are going to influence the business. And also proud to say that coming out of that, we went public in December of 2021 for the second time. I've been here for both. I actually got to ring the bell at NASDAQ, which was really cool. I got to show you those pictures, Zev. It's pretty cool. And then we went private.
Please send them to me.
I'll send them to you. We also sold to private equity, Blackstone. And that happened in June of last year. And so we came out of the pandemic strong. We're thriving, and we've got a great path forward.
Love it. So I was personally involved with one of the first events you guys did for our joint friend, the awesome Fred Diamond and the Institute of Excellence in Sales. Shout out Fred and the Institute. So we were involved in one of the first ones. And let me tell you something. You guys were an inspiration. When I relied on speaking, both for revenue and for getting new clients. And we had to pivot, and LinkedIn was a big part of our pivot. Looking at you guys made me want to do more, made me want to see the opportunities and challenges, and love what you guys did and loved seeing how you acted. Josh, you've done a similar amazing thing with this change. So as you were a gamer and you've developed so many games, when the industry changed, you started developing amazing immersive experience. Can you share with us a little bit kind of how you pivoted from gaming into like the B2B training space?
you know, it's an interesting one. You know, I love competing with the best in the world. That is one of the I'm a hyper competitive individual. Always have been, always will be. So the gaming space is so competitive, always has been, and it will continue to remain so. You have to innovate, you have to move faster, you die, essentially. And if you don't make good product, well then nobody plays your stuff. It's a very easy space to see if you're doing well. Just look at your player counts. If they're high, then you're doing good. If they're not high, well then you're not doing so good. But for me, you know, I always say in a sea full of mediocrity, it's very easy to stand out. So when I started to look at the B2B kind of sales trainings vertical specifically, there's just nothing out there right now that's really engaging users. I've sat through all these corporate trainings where you're sitting there for 3 hours clicking a button. It's like clicking a button, you almost get a rhythm to it. It's like it's all in the wrist motion. It's like, it's honestly, to be frank, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. It is not actually providing value for people. So for someone who's sold multi-million dollar contracts over the years and continues to do so, I understand how to sell. I understand the mechanics of sales. I understand, addressing someone's pain point and all the core things that certain people just don't know how to do. And it's not that they aren't good at it, it's just they've never been shown it. There's a reason why in sales organizations, you've like 10% of the sales team that's equating for 90% of the revenue. There's a reason for that. It's because there's some really talented individuals who really know what they're doing. So I wanted to break that barrier down and really, be able to bring a solution. Having been in the gaming space for a very long time, I know how to entertain people. I know how to engage people. I know how to get people to do what I want them to do, essentially, in a closed, interactive environment. So let's do that for training. Let's actually make it fun. Make training fun again. You just that's all you got to do. You got to engage people. People are curious, they're creative, they get bored easy. Half the world's probably borderline ADHD at this point. It's true, and we want to really engage and we want to get actionable impact out of it. If I can make an experience that is going to produce and increase someone's sales productivity by 20%, I've just made their lives 20% easier. That brings a lot of joy to me, and like being in the software space as well and having worked with the biggest of the biggest and still working with them, it goes to the top. It really does. Like it's like you would think that in these massive billion-dollar companies that they would have the best salespeople known to mankind, and then when I know their SKU better than they do, that's a problem. So, and again, that all comes back to a knowledge thing, a training thing. 90% of salespeople just come in from a different sector, and it's a revolving door. So we need to make that revolving door a little bit nicer, and give people the training that they need to get there. Gamify it, make it fun, make salespeople compete against each other. Once you do that, they'll do whatever you want because they're hyper competitive.
Love it. Now let's share with everybody. Josh, you and I went to visit with Daryl, a week and a half ago. I loved walking through your sales floor. I could feel the energy. Okay. Now, sales is in my blood. Now, I always know that 20% of the salespeople do 80% of the results, and maybe sometimes it's even more, like 10% doing 90%. How do you cultivate a sales force that continuously grow and doesn't stagnate, Daryl? How do you make sure? Because I've seen you do it, and I've seen the sales floor gushing. I've seen the excitement. How do you keep that happening in today's market?
Look, I think, and we probably have some entrepreneurs on here. It's worth noting that this culture, our sales culture, we are for sure sales and marketing driven culture at Cvent, but it comes from our CEO. And people wouldn't expect that our CEO, they would think he's a sales guy. He's not. He's actually a lawyer. And so it was part of our fabric from the get-go. How do you make that? I really want to pull off of what Josh was saying because I too like to compete against the best, right? And I want a sales team that wants to compete against the best. So how do you build that culture? Couple things. One, you have to be fanatical about having targets, communicating them broadly, and having them be professionally aggressive, right? So I think that's really, really important, right? And you got to hold people accountable. That said, you can't have just stick without having the carrot, right? And Monica's mentioned, we're all human. And that's exactly where I was going, Monica, is that you also have to reward the other side, right? Like, how do you create that culture? So we've got a gong in our office. And when people hit their quota or they sell a big deal or they cross a threshold of some sort, we're going to hit that bell. So we kind of get it on both sides. And what we found is people who do well in sales, this is again not a shocker, but it is so true. They like to compete. They like to compete against their colleagues. They like to compete against the scoreboard, right? That's, golf has a handicap system. Sales kind of the same way. You're going to have different quotas, different territories, that type of thing. But you can create this internal competition. And so we do a lot of that. So we create this competition, but we celebrate the heck out of success. And that kind of keeps people going.
I love that. So anybody that's listening, celebrate your successes. If you don't celebrate your successes, nobody's going to get excited. Now, how do you push the people that are not the top performers to perform better? How do you create that? That's something I've always struggled, and I think you're doing an amazing job. How do you keep that part that is not the top salespeople to actually produce?
Well, they have their targets, right? And if they're not producing, we will lean into that, right? Like it's always one of two things. It's either a work ethic thing or it's a skill thing. And so that's kind of easy to assess. And if it's a skill thing, we spend a lot of time working with them on it, right? I think one of the things that's unique about Cvent's sales leadership team, we're all down in the trenches, As an SVP, I'm on calls every single day with customers, right? Why? Those relationships matter. It's not just a business transaction. There is an outcome that's a business transaction for sure, whether it's, the ROI that our customers are getting, but you got to work with those folks. And again, if you're going to build a high performing team, you have to have expectations and you have to measure against them and you have to hold people accountable. And it's hard. It's really hard to play for a winning team. My boss has high expectations of me, but you know what it does? It helps us reach another level. And, I'll give a quick story, success story here. One of my reps who has been around for a long time and he was really struggling because the world changed with COVID, right? Everything from now we're working from home and not going into an office. Our products have expanded. We get a lot more products today than we used to have. How we approach customers is different because if we try to approach customers where we want to approach them, we're going to lose. You got to meet customers where they want to be. You have to have a sales style that meets where they want to be, right? This is not a world today of hard charging. If I get you to say yes 10 times, you're going to buy from me. That's not the way the world works. The way the world works is going in and having good conversations. That's a skill thing, right? Not an activity. Like you got to be able to ask the right questions. And so we worked with this guy and said, hey, you got to heal this performance. And here are some of the things that you need to tap into that you haven't been tapping into. Here's a great outcome. The guy is really killing it now. And it was awesome because he tells me, he goes, I called him. He's on the West Coast. So in fact, Josh, he's like literally, he's in Venice Beach. So he's right around the corner from you. But he was like, man, I'm on the treadmill. I got to go run on the treadmill because I haven't been on the treadmill in a while. And I'm just feeling really, really good. Here's the interesting point, Zeb. Seeing somebody have success in their professional life that they weren't having and seeing how it transcends into the personal life. The guy is living a better life. But why? Because we helped coach him development. We didn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. We leaned in and helped. And that takes both sides. It takes leadership it takes the individual. And this is true. I'm sure Josh can give lots of examples in the tech space where you got to do the same thing. Technology is always changing. AI is changing. Like, we have models that are 3 months old that we have to throw out because they've matured. So with that, I'll maybe transition it over to Josh, because I bet he's got some good stuff there.
So Josh, how do you do it? How do you keep your salespeople going?
It was funny. Sales, developers, whatever it may be, it's all the same. People are people, and people buy people. It's funny. I ran this experiment internally, and it was, I'm going to take a step back and see what happens. Let's remove the leadership, and then let's see, but just see what happens. And it was on our own internal project, so it wasn't a client project, so none of them got affected. What we seen like a 72.8% reduction in productivity. When people don't have a strong leader that they can follow and that they feel like is in the trenches with them and that's willing to do what needs to be done to get the job done, people will just falter. So I feel like that it's a rising tide raises all ships. You can either set people up for success or failure. One of the biggest things that I find is if someone's on board into a new org, it's very hard to get annoyed at someone for something if you don't show them how to do it. And I think everyone's guilty of this, of expecting people to act like we do and know everything that we do. And when you break it down, it can be challenging. So, the only way, in my opinion, to do it is to document everything, have stringent processes, set people up for success, not failure, and be willing to change quickly. Certain things work for certain people. And what I mean by that is, one of our best developers, one of the greatest, and it carries over to sales too, hates phone calls. Will not get on a phone call. Is allergic to it. Just does not like it. Personally, just has an issue with it, and that's fine. If he pushes code better than anybody else does, so as long as he's doing that, no issues. And on the sales side, we have some guys who love being on the ground with people, who love going into the office. They love that whole environment. They love it's like them getting on the planes, like the pregame and all this sort of stuff. They love it. That's like their thing, to get in like a mode. And then there's some guys who just love being on Zoom, who just want to play with their cat, but they're very good at what they do. So I feel like if you meet people where they're at and are be willing to be flexible and not force people into your predefined garden, then you will be much more successful in that. It's a people's game. It's not like anything else. It always comes back to people.
Love that. And this is called the anatomy of the entrepreneur. And witness these two people, Josh and Daryl. Right now I'm speaking, they're both muted. Daryl is running probably $1 million worth of business as we're speaking. Josh is probably leading a bunch of developers. If you want to grow, you must take on a lot of things. And I'm a military product. There's only one way to lead, and you guys tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's by example, either good example or bad example. Daryl, watching you walk through your sales floor, I could feel the example, okay? People know you're in the trenches. People know you're not shy. You'll pick up the phone, you'll close the deal. Josh, the same way. People know your developers, and I know this for a fact, know that you'll fix the issue. You will never ask anybody else do something that you won't be willing to do. And that's why I appreciate you guys so much. Now, there's a question here that came a couple of times through the comments. The people that have a job right now and are serving great organizations and want to go out more to the entrepreneurial side. Dale, we'll start with you and then Josh. What would be the advice you would give to somebody that has a job that they like, but they also want to venture out to be more entrepreneurial?
Well, I think there's two paths to that, right? Like, being an entrepreneur is not easy. You and Josh both know this. You're serial entrepreneurs. You've done it a bunch of times. There's stress, strain, anxiety. There's financial pressures. There's a lot going on as an entrepreneur. So you better really be passionate about what you're doing. And then Josh mentioned this earlier, like people aren't going to do what you do as an entrepreneur, and they shouldn't really be expected to. They don't have as much at stake as you do. So finding a way to motivate those people up to a level that's helpful is good. But I'm going to go the opposite direction, because this is what happened to me. I've started 2 companies. I moved up to Washington, D.C. I got married. I had kids. I moved to the suburbs, got a white picket fence, a dog, the whole 9 yards, right? My risk profile changed, and I wasn't comfortable taking on the risk of being an entrepreneur and putting my money into a company. But what I was able to do is become an intrapreneur. What's an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur inside of a company, right? And I've been fortunate to find that on multiple companies that I've worked for. And it is a big thing at Cvent. We talk about the entrepreneurial spirit all the time. And really what that means is like, find a problem, solve that problem, take an action. Like another one of the things we say is, don't just be a problem spotter, be a problem solver, right? That's being an entrepreneur. And I have seen it so many times at Cvent. So when I got here, we were under 1,000 people. Now we're at 5,000 people. There are people that are running big groups or divisions right now that wasn't even a thing 10 years ago. But the business had a need, right? So solutions consultants is a good example. Solutions consultants are smart people like Josh that come in and do the demo. So the salespeople can focus on listening and asking questions and that type of thing. That was a group of 0, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. It's a group of 30 people now, and it's critical to our success. So you can be an entrepreneur inside of a company, but you got to raise your hand. Nobody's going to dole that out and give it to you. You got to go find it, be a problem spotter, then be a problem solver. So either path.
I love that. So to the ones that asked, if you want to do it, basically act like an entrepreneur within your organization, like an intrapreneur. If you do that, you'll be set up to really grow your entrepreneurial skills. Basically practice within your company first. What do you think, Josh? Any recommendations for people that either want to venture out or be more entrepreneurial?
I for anyone who doesn't know, I only moved to the States recently, relatively recently. I was joking about this the other day, especially if you're living in the US. There is I'm from Ireland. I am from a rural, my neighbors were cows. Let's put it that way. Cows and sheep and chickens and pigs. So I know that world very well. In that, to be honest with you, there isn't that much opportunity. Like, if you want to be the best, silage churner, in the county or the parish, you can do that. But there's not much commercial endeavors to be had. There's some, but not too many. When I moved to the US, I was flabbergasted with the opportunity and the ability to make money. I just see money everywhere here. It's unbelievable. Like, you can walk in, and this is what I mean by the entrepreneurial mindset. And this is really what it is. When you walk into Target, you go and you say, I want to get food. What do I want for dinner? When I walk into Target, in my mind, I'm saying, what are their COGS? How much are they making on each product? Why are they reducing that product? And how is this scaling up from a commercial endeavor? So it's the way I like to explain to people, for me anyway, and this I can only give my experience, is it's almost like, kind of, if anyone's ever seen The Matrix, it's almost like that, where Neo sees the code behind everything else. It's a different mindset and how you approach things. And if someone wants to have that, be that entrepreneur, and they're in an existing org, well, just do it. Most organizations do not actually care if you're selling, whatever on the side. As long as it doesn't compete with their core business lines, they're probably not going to have a problem with it. Hilariously, one of the VPs at a very, very, very they're a $19 billion company. I know for a fact they have their own marketing agency because it's on their email signature that they send from their work email. Nobody cares. As long as you don't interact, as long as you don't mess with people, as long as you're not competing, sniping customers, doing anything that would be considered, illegitimate or whatever, and you're being an honest individual and you ask HR first, generally you'll be fine. Give it a go, try. One thing I will say is though, and this is maybe now other people that disagree with this, but I don't think people should get into like a 50K a month brick and mortar store where they've got a bunch of product if they've never done a business before. That's tough. That can get you into a dangerous position quickly. You need to be smart about it. There's plenty of online businesses that you can do now, or physical businesses that have low barrier to entry. Try them first and see what you like. Because I'll be honest, 80% of people try being an entrepreneur and they quickly realize, I wouldn't put this on my worst enemy. This is horrible. It's 5 o'clock and I have to actually keep working. Oh no, so that's a thing too. It's like, it's one of these pieces where I would exactly say that. And Daryl, you kind of hit on it. Not everybody can do it. You really, and not because you don't want to. Like, I don't have kids. I don't have any of that. If I go gangbusters and bust, it is what it is. That's a Josh problem. But if I had little Joshes running around, that'd be a different issue because then I'd have to look after it. So it's different risk profiles, situations. I feel like though there's a way everyone can be an entrepreneur. It just gradates on the scale of how big it can grow.
So I don't think everybody can be an entrepreneur. I think it's for some people and not. And I'm taking my own family. So I have a little brother and he is brilliant. Okay. He is not an iota less smart than me, less competent than me, but he's just not a risk taker. He works for LinkedIn. Okay. He does an amazing job for him, but he needs a position and a frame in order to operate best in. If you put me in a frame, I don't operate best. I need to be in the frame creation business. So I just think it's not for everybody. Okay. There are a few people that are just not built to be entrepreneurs, and that's okay. We all need employees. We all need people to move things forward. And each person gets his growth in a different way. Josh, you and I, we need to feel innovative. We need to feel that if not, we'll be bored. And I don't think, knowing you, I don't think it's going to change when you have kids. Okay, now the amount of risk is going to change. Okay, but you'll be bored without taking risk, knowing you. And Daryl changed, but he's still doing this entrepreneurial thing from his own position. So it's still part of the personality that you need to do. But I doubt my brother will ever be an entrepreneur. It's just not something he's looking for. And not everybody wants to worry at night about what happens. Some people just want to shut things off. To me and you, that will be boring, right? If we don't have something to worry about, we'll find some trouble. That's kind of how you and I operate. So we always have something to worry about. There's another business I'll share with you today. Today on the phone, I actually spoke to 2 other business owners about ideas to create businesses that has nothing to do with my marketing and AI business. One is a clothing business and one is a supplement business. Okay. Now, this is all because I am looking to create more and do more, but it's not for everybody. Some people just need to focus on what they're doing. Now, let's go back to Cvent and some events. So, Daryl, you guys have something really exciting coming up in Europe. Can you share a little bit about the event coming up, and we'll share it on screen as well?
Yeah, sure. Do you mind if I make one other comment, though, on what you were just
Absolutely,
speaking
man.
to? And Elise
Yes.
had an interesting comment about being bored. Again, I want to be really clear here in that you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur. It's all those same tenets, right? You just got to find a right company that allows you to grow and experiment and do all those things. But I think, Elise, it's kind of interesting about, people that get bored. Like, I've talked about our high performance culture and what we expect from our employees. I have had several people that have left and then come back. And one of the things they always cite is, I thought I would like being at a place where I could kind of hide over in the corner. My boss wouldn't, be as engaged as you are, Daryl. And what I found is I wasn't enjoying my job. I wasn't performing as highly, and I just didn't feel as good. Like people need that, you know? And so again, you may not be an entrepreneur and wanting to do all those things, but I think the human spirit in general, regardless, like people want to be challenged professionally. That's why people leave companies. They leave companies not because of money. They leave companies because they've got a bad boss or they can't grow. They want to be challenged in their day to day. So if you are an entrepreneur, make sure you're giving that to your people. Give them a chance to be challenged. Give them the rope to fail. It's okay because as entrepreneurs, we've all failed, you know, and made some bad mistakes or bad decisions. It's okay. Go again, but give your people that opportunity to be challenged.
Are you a baseball guy, Daryl?
I'm actually not. It's the one sport I don't like. I'm a huge hockey guy, first, second, and third, and then I like football too. But hockey's my game.
I love sports in general. If you need to be a Hall of Famer, okay, in hockey, in whatever, your percentages are going to be a lot lower than 50% on everything. Look at the best shooters, Steph Curry, the best shooter the world has ever seen. What is the average? 39% from three, 40% from three. That's missing most of the shots he takes, and that's the best guy in the world. So my advice to people out there, failing is part of the game, and if you don't fail, you'll never succeed. So you got to take some shots, and you'll miss most of them, right? Like even the best of us, we miss most of them.
You know, Kobe Bryant, they congratulated him on, hey, congrats, you've made more game-winning shots than any player in the history of the NBA. And his response, because he's a very humble guy, RIP, but he was like, yeah, but what people don't talk about is I've also missed more game-winning shots than anybody in the history of the NBA. So
I love Kobe Bryant, and I've followed his career throughout. I'm a LA Lakers fan too. I remember in the beginning of his career, they played a playoff game, and nobody wanted to take the last shot, and him as a rookie took, I think, 3 shots, and he airballed all of them. Okay, that's the kind of balls I want in my people. Okay, I want you to be able to confidently take the shot, and I don't care if you airball, because that's going to teach you for the next time and the next time, and that's why he was so successful. Now, Daryl, I know you have a hard stop, and I promised you will be on time, so we're getting close to that stop. So let's talk a little bit about Cvent, and let's talk about the event that you have coming on. I'm going to share it on screen here. So we have Cvent Connect Europe, 5th through the 7th of November. Can you tell us a little bit about this event? And please, everybody, all our audience in Europe, you should definitely attend. This is amazing. Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, so this is our users conference. We do 2 of them every year. We do one in the US and we do one in Europe. The one in Europe is really a fun story because it's a little less mature. This I think is probably our 5th year that we've done Cvent Connect in Europe, but it's an opportunity for event professionals and hotels to all come together in one place. For this one in Europe, we'll have, I think, about 1,500 people. Our one in the US will have about 5,000 people. So, but it's a great event, and you know, part of what we do, and you know, hopefully have heard some of this tenor in what I've been saying, but it is all about people. It is about the human connection, and so our users conferences, they are about being able to meet your peers, share best practices. Of course, there's tons of sessions like the one in the US. I think there's several hundred sessions. Of course, a lot of those are going on concurrently. But if you're in the event space, it's an unbelievable conference. And we are going back to San Antonio, as you were just showing there, Zell. We went last year. It was such a great success. We decided to come back again here in 2025.
Well, count me in for sure. I would totally do the Europe event. I don't know if my wife is going to allow, but count me in to San Antonio. Everybody, please follow these incredible gentlemen, Daryl and Josh. Follow them on LinkedIn. Follow Cvent. Follow Viacry. Follow Stratton Studios. I really appreciate you guys coming in, and I know I'm growing just by the relationship with you guys. And I'll give you guys the last note here. So first to Daryl and then to Josh. Daryl, some closing words from you.
Well, I was having a hard time getting my chat connected for whatever reason. It won't go through to my Google Photos. But if anybody out there has a question, and you can drop it into chat, maybe we can kind of handle that in real time here. Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, I can talk hockey all day long. My son grew up playing travel hockey. We traveled all over the country. He actually plays at University of Kentucky. So I'm a season ticket holder for the Washington Capitals. So hoping we can see OV break the record, if not this year, next year. Look, entrepreneur, both of them are unique roles. Both of them require a lot of tenacity. They require a lot of vision. And most importantly, they require passionate leaders that will go make a difference, right? And if you are an entrepreneur, you have to give your people room to grow. I think, we'll be surprised to see who rises up. We get stuck in this, are you a Gen Xer, or, are you a, millennial, or are you, what are we on now? Gen Z, my kids are Gen Z. It is interesting how you see different generations operate differently, but there are always people that will stick their head above the crowd. One of the things I say all the time at C-Event, it's like, I've never seen such an entrepreneurial company of 5,000 people, and you never know who is going to make the difference. I brought in a guy about a year and a half ago, 21 years old, right out of college, that he is one of the people that is very prevalent through our organization, even at the exec levels. They know who he is, they know what he's doing, and it's not just a sales performance. It's some of the other things that he's doing to help drive the business forward, like helping us understand some of the sales tech stack items that people were struggling. And this guy just came in and did it. Like here's a 21-year-old coming into a 5,000 person company, operating like an entrepreneur and having an impact on the organization. So
that is amazing. Josh.
Every time I get asked this, or every time I come to like a closing remark or whatever it may be, I always say the one thing: don't be afraid to ask for help. That is the big thing. 80% of the deals, relationships I have now is because I sent someone a random message or email at probably 2 or 3 in the morning, probably when I shouldn't have, and I said, "Hey, can I just grab 5 minutes of your time?" That's all it is. Now, I always say don't abuse that. You can only go to the well so many times before people say, "This guy is fucking," I like to call them time burglars. Someone who just steals your time.
I love that.
A time burglar. And I'll tell people, I will straight tell people you are starting to become a time burglar. There's 2 big things that I always talk about: time burglars and sales prevention. Because there's sometimes in organizations there's people that prevent sales, and I call them sales prevention. There's like the sales prevention team come in and they want to, anyway. So, but I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. Never be afraid to drop someone a message on LinkedIn, share an idea. I was in a bank yesterday, with quite a high, I won't say which bank, so I don't want to get him in trouble, but a VP at one of the banks. And he sat down there, and we had an appointment about me setting up some accounts. It turns out we had an appointment about him starting a business, which is pretty funny. It's don't be afraid to ask for help. That's
Love that. So I'm putting this sales prevention and time burglars. Ed Josh at his best. Love it, man. Yes. Truly, truly love it. You guys are amazing. I know you both got to go. Thank you. Daryl, I'll reach out to you. You're amazing, and I won't be a time burglar. And Josh, I appreciate you, man. Let's make sure we don't have any sales prevention team on anything, because Q4 is important for us. LinkedIn, yes. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to bring these brilliant people on. Thank you, guys, and have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, Zach. Good times.